All right, everybody, it's time for you to get out and nominate your favorite podcasts. There's a show I want you to consider for the People's Choice Podcast Awards. Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast in 3 categories: education, storyteller and drama, and arts. For 5 years and with over 280 weekly episodes and 64 million plus downloads, the Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast has provided advice and tips from international best-selling authors, world-class artists, contest judges and winners, and industry professionals. It is based on the world-famous Writers of the Future contest created in 1983 by L. Ron Hubbard to help the aspiring writer and artist no matter their age, race, ethnicity, or gender. It is dedicated to the future of storytelling and art by showing that it is never too late to start, and those who make it are those who never give up. We are all busy, but I'd be so grateful if you could take a moment and vote now. Go to podcastawards.com to nominate the Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast in any or all 3 of the categories: education, storyteller drama, or art. News on the flip side. It's time for you to get out and nominate your favorite podcast. There's an amazing show I want you to consider for the People's Choice Podcast Awards. The News on the Flip Side, in the category of politics and news. News on the Flip Side is a much different news and political program, which is not deemed as opinion news. Listen as anchor host Joe Montaldo brings you just the facts from trusted sources, which will allow you, the people, to make up your own minds on the various stories being reported on. Go to podcastawards.com to nominate the News on the Flip Side in the category of news and politics. That's podcastawards.com. Please take a moment and vote now.
Tune in to UFO Undercover, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, with your host, Joe Montaldo, right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
I had enough.
Well, you drove out there into the middle of nowhere and had some sort of loud verbal display challenging ET in general out in the middle of nowhere?
That's what I was doing. I actually had a pistol in my hand at the time. I was really ticked off. When I was having this fit, I was waving the gun in the air, okay, and I had this fit. And at this moment, I said, okay.
He was a Louisiana man named Montaldo. Folks around called him Six Gun Joe. Worked with ICAR, don't you know? Investigating UFOs. Out for a drive with a gal one night, they stopped to check out the reporting site. When an alien lit right there on the ground, he commenced to throwing his weight around. Now, old Six Gun didn't take too kindly to that kind of thing, especially without Vaseline or anything like that, Seriously. Well, Six Gun looked that critter right in the eye and said, "Any last wish before you die?" He yelled, reached for his gun, quick as a twitch, and said, "Fill your claw, you son of a bitch." Now a legend spread across the land about this pistol-waving man. But if you're from space or from Earth below, you don't give no lip to Six Gun Joe.
You're listening to UFO Undercover with your host, Joe Montaldo, right here on the Paranormal Radio Network. Welcome to UFO Undercover with your host, Joe Montaldo.
Good evening, everybody. I decided to set my alarm off right as we went live there, so I hope everyone's enjoying the show. We're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about tonight across a lot of topics tonight, actually. I get so many emails about this about extraterrestrials, that about extraterrestrials, this about extraterrestrials. What's that, Jim? That's my burglar alarm. I don't want to set my studio doors. No, I can shut the studio door, but I'd rather leave it open. I can deal with a little rough every once in a while. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying before I was rudely interrupted there. There's a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of work to keep up with. Just keeping up with my friends in the government who want to talk to me about this all the time. And you know what? That's a bad way of saying it. My friends in the military and in other organizations might be a better way of saying it, because these days I got a pretty good group of friends now that are in different organizations and different parts of the government. It's not like it's thanks to some senators I met way back when. I've been put in touch with quite a few people, and what gets me is most of them I know more than they do, which always cracks me up when I'm talking to one of these people. What do you want to call them, Men in Black, or the DARPA people, or the Space Command people, or just regular government or military? It's amazing how much I get referred to speak to these people. It cracks me up. Now, granted, I've been in the field for a long time. It's not like I just started tracking crazy UFO stuff. I've been tracking it for almost 40 years, so there's quite a bit of stuff going in there. But when it comes right down to it's mind-boggling. Not just the U.S. government, all governments, China, Russia, England, it doesn't matter. When it comes to this topic, they are just ignorant. I was listening. Now, someone had asked Xi Jinping a while back about extraterrestrials. You know what he said? Oh, you need to ask America. I was like, wait, what?
What?
Yes. I'm thinking, wait, what was that comment? You need to ask America. And when Putin was asked, he said, we know very little about it, other than some stuff some astronauts said. He said, maybe you should refer to America media, is what he said. So the other two world leaders, we're talking Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, said when it comes to extraterrestrials, you should refer to the United States. By the way, they didn't deny the existence. They never tried to bullshit you and say it was something else.
They didn't bounce around the question either.
Yes, they just boom answered the question. Well, the Saudi prince was asked this 2 years ago, and said he was told by an American ambassador that, oh yeah, it's big time real. It's just we know absolutely nothing about it. It's what's that, Jackie? No, I sent you a link. To some of my friends, I'd sent some of my friends. I'd sent some links out. No, y'all more than welcome to come sit in the green room and listen to us as we talk. Because trying to find this on UFO extraterrestrials and gods on YouTube is like a challenge. I mean, finding this on UFO Paranormal Radio is easy, but finding this on the other one is like, even I have a hard time finding this on the damn thing, and I know where the damn thing is at. It's kind of scary. But anyway, getting back to what we were talking to, I've talked to a few senators over here and a few House reps. I've talked to some admirals, some generals, some colonels, some captains, some pilots. Actually, quite a few pilots, quite a few astronauts. I got the distinct pleasure of getting to hang out with Edgar Mitchell and Buzz Aldrin for a couple of days at the X conference. We came pretty tight. We talked about a lot of stuff. And it was funny because Buzz Aldrin runs around a lot of times saying we didn't go to the moon. And we're having dinner at the Washington Press Club. It was myself, Stephen Bissett, myself, Edgar Mitchell, Buzz Aldrin. I can't remember the gentleman. He was a World War II pilot who was there to talk about the Foo Fighters that he had seen during World War II, and two other astronauts besides that, shuttle astronauts actually. Jeff Chandler, and I can't remember the other gentleman's name. We got to talking, and you look at Edgar looks over at Buzz and says, "Don't start that bullshit. We haven't been to the moon." he said, "Why do you tell people that?" He said, "Because they're ignorant. How can they think that the whole world bluffed us?" Now, before we get into something else, in order for the United States to have lied about going to the moon, The Russians would have had to been in on it. The Chinese would have had to been in on it. Pretty much all of our enemies and all of our allies would have had to be in on it. So you're talking roughly, it's about 250,000 people tracked. The thing. So in case y'all don't know, America can't track it all the time because the world turns, and sometimes we're on the wrong side of the planet. So we have to have friends and allies tracking what's going on worldwide. And we have listening stations all over the place. With a matter of fact, we're the only country in the world that has listening stations to monitor the sky, all the skies, all the time. It's not no Russia only has 4 listening posts. That's it. I think China only has 2. So it makes it hard for them where we know where all of their stuff is all the time. They only know where our stuff is some of the time. Yes, and recently there have been other things found in space that's interesting, like Elon Musk putting all of these satellites up there that can be used to ram into ballistic missiles if they're shot at the United States. Isn't that nice? So here's Russia, China, United States. Couldn't even figure this out. This is a guy who's given us free satellite, or not free satellite, but paid satellite around the world. And he can also use his satellites to knock down ballistic missiles. You would have thought some of these high dollar agencies would have figured this shit out on their own. But no, we got the guy who, the Tesla guy, the SpaceX guy, the guy who's got his satellites in space so you can get internet all around the world. He figured it out. It says a lot about the people in charge of the world right now. It really does. Which said Jimmy. So that is a true story. So during the Cold War, Russia had 2 ballistic missile submarines off the coast of the east coast of the United States, straight out from D.C. about 150 miles. Both subs went missing. Both subs went down. And what they had described as a USO, under a submersible object underwater moving at extreme speeds. The one Russian captain explained that it was doing at least 300 knots, which is about 450 miles an hour, if I remember correctly. And knots like 1 1/4 miles or something, 1 3/8. Anyway, so these things were moving, and they went down, and they did not. Their ships did not come back up. The subs did not come back on for several hours until this thing left the area, because this thing was hanging around the area for a while. And when it finally left the area, the subs came back on. And the reason we found that is the Russians reported it down to the United States in case there had been an accident or something with 2 ballistic missile submarines off the coast of. That's almost an act of war, but they weren't inside of our waterways. So,
well, there were quite a few scares with their subs back in the 80s. The movie and the book, Hunt for Red October, is based on one of their subs going missing, and we had to send the U.S. Navy had to send our DSRV, deep sea recovery vehicle, to rescue the Russian Navy guys. And while we were on board, guess what? We took pictures. So we know that their technology is way behind us. I'd say they're probably 100 years behind us in sub technology right now.
Oh, with the exception of one sub, they're way behind. So they got one sub it's pretty stealthy, pretty fast. It's that jet propelled. They actually had 4, but there's only 1 left now. It's water propulsion is what it is. They call it jet propulsion.
Magneto-hydrodynamic drive, or
yeah,
Caterpillar.
It's very, very quiet. It makes no noise. It's very stealthy. It's very fast. It's very big, and it carries a lot of missiles. But the problem is it costs so much to operate, and Russia simply does not have the money to operate these subs. Matter of fact, most of Russia's fleet is mothballed. People don't even realize that. That's why the Ukraine's having so much fun with them, because they're coming back out, and nobody knows what the hell is going on because nobody's been sailing these ships for a while. Well, to have a big navy like the United States and China does, you have to have it. It has to be in service every minute of every day. Well, no, China has reported UFOs. Matter of fact, their new aircraft carrier just recently, when one of the U.S. destroyers, I forgot what it was. One of the Aegis cruiser type destroyers. So China and Russia was having this big, let's blow shit up meeting out in there, and war games. U.S. sails an Aegis cruiser up into the middle of the fleet, parks it next to China's brand new. Could have sank it right there. They didn't even know it was there. had no idea this was one of our cruisers sitting in the midst of their fleet. That thing could have done ungodly amount. It could have sunk 7, 8, 9 ships before they even knew what the hell was going on. Shows you how stealthy our ships actually are.
Well, not only stealthy, but the attack computers we have, they could have sat there unknown and launched every weapon at every ship and hit them all before they knew they were being fired upon.
Yeah, so it was interesting. But while it was there, it had picked up a radio transmission from the new carrier over to one of the Russian battle fleets to discuss what had been seen earlier that day. There was a saucer that had been seen hovering over the fleet for some time. And, of course, all of the fleet was acting squirrely while the thing was there. When normal UFOs are hovering over anything, they tend to wreak havoc on electronics. Whether it's some type of EMP or something else, they tend to wreak havoc. Now, this has been documented in the American fleet, the British fleet, the Russian fleet, the Chinese fleet. Matter of fact, most navies out there has experienced it, but it's not just that. Russia and the United States have experienced missile silos, not just one silo being shut down, but the whole system in that area being shut down. Mm-hmm. So instead of having 200 missiles available or 500 missiles available, there was none. And they couldn't do anything. It wouldn't do anything.
They mess with us in two ways in that respect. In Russia, they turned the missiles on as if they were armed and ready to fire. In America, they turned them off so you could not fire them, which was a big scare for both sides. But then also there's other reports that not just from the military of their electronic masking capabilities. That several abductee experiencers, especially those driving vehicles when they were abducted, they say that the car was working, then the UFO showed up and the car stopped working. And then while the UFO was there, the car would not work. And then just before the UFO would fly away, the car started working again. So they have some sort of device they can turn on or off and turn on or off all of our machinery. And allegedly from military experiencers that they can also stop our handguns and firearms from working.
Hey, yes, U.S. Army vet. That's actually been something they've talked about, which would also make all the stories of Dulce bullshit.
Yeah.
So I actually talked with a colonel about this about 6 years ago, and we were, I don't know where we were, some conference in Utah. Oh yeah, I was actually giving a lecture at a conference in Utah, and him and I were talking about it. He said, what is it? I said, somehow or another they have the ability to stop the compression of the bullet because it clicks like it's going to fire, and then nothing happens. The compression doesn't work. I don't know if it neutralizes the gunpowder or if it neutralizes compression, but the bullets don't come out the gun. Matter of fact, the one Army vet was talking about, he could just tilt his gun like this and the bullets would just fall out the barrel. Well, yeah, I would agree with you, U.S. Army vet. I used to bitch about Dulce all the time, but people got mad at me. Oh, Joe, it was a running battle. I'm thinking these are extraterrestrial grays that can cross the cosmos. I would imagine their weapons are just a little bit more advanced than us. Actually, I think they're quite a bit more advanced than us. And I don't think they'd be a running battle. I think they would just melt the whole area. And remember, the grays have the abilities to control us through thought. So yep. I'm not thinking there's going to really be much of a running battle when the aliens is going to make you think about shooting your own guy. I just, sometimes you got to call bullshit when it's bullshit. Well, it's like my favorite little kid on TikTok where it's bullshit. It's, what's that, Randy? I don't get to watch TikTok anymore. I'm going to put a station page up there. Well, there is a station page up there. I just don't broadcast on it yet. We are broadcasting on Rumble now. And as soon as myself and this company that we work with Roku comes to an agreement, you'll see them back on probably Friday. But I got really pissed with them. So, well, sometimes people do things they shouldn't do. And then sometimes people like me have a runaway hissy fit.
Well, I mean, I was shocked. I mean, last week I turned on, we were getting ready to do the show.
Well, that's what it started over. So, yeah, we had, well, I'll tell you about it after the show, but we had a card get hacked for about 10 grand.
Oh, shit.
And so PayPal's taking care of all that. But meanwhile, it caused a little mini disaster. Because so many things run off of it. And I got to give PayPal credit. They're really whipping it into shape and taking care of it. No, they'll probably have all the money back on it within, probably under 7 days. But still, this company posted some nasty shit up on the screen. Well, when Jay wrote to me and told me about it, I don't know. I told him, I said, I don't know if I'm coming back to y'all now. I said, I'm gonna have to think about it. I said that was just uncalled for kind of misbehavior. But anyway, enough about that. That's for us to deal with. So, over the years, I've probably met, I don't know, 20, maybe 30 colonels, a bunch of captains, all kind of pilots, because I was in the Navy, so I made a lot of friends. And I have
And
never
you're
met.
expert too, so you'd met pilots all the time.
Yeah, well, I have never met a commercial or military pilot that has not seen a UFO, not one. Everyone I've ever talked to has seen a UFO. Well, I mean, when you put enough hours in the sky, you're going to see something.
Yeah.
And my problem always is the same thing. I don't believe it's accidental when you see one. I think it's a dot. It's a period, basically saying, okay, you were taken. We're letting you see this so you'll remember something happened to you. They don't want to let you remember everything because for most humans it's too much anyway. But if for some reason you showed an interest when they took you, then more than likely they're going to leave you a puzzle to try to figure out to see if you can deal with this and not lose your mind. It's a lot to think about. I mean, anybody thinking about aliens taking them or doing this, that, or the other thing, it's a lot to deal with. I mean, we have everyday life to deal with right now, and on top of that, you got to deal with this. Who's an alien? Oh, well, Camilla probably is an alien. Yeah, she probably is a dumb alien, but she's probably still an alien. Yes. No, if you want to talk about that Friday night, we'll be discussing that all night. Friday night. Yes, sir. We'll be discussing her and Trumpy and Cracker Joe, the whole bunch of them. We'll be talking about it. Yeah, we'll be talking about what they did. Was it legal, illegal? What's the outcome going to be? All of that stuff. We'll be talking all of that. We do talk a little aliens on the on.
Yeah, there's a lot of fireworks to come still. So
yeah, there's a lot of mad people out there. Yeah, I mean a lot of mad people. Well, there's a lot of mad people in the fact that it wasn't constitutional, is what they're saying. So she didn't get elected by the people; she got elected by the politicians, and a lot of people, including Trump, are having a problem with that. But anyway, it's enough about that tonight. We'll talk about it on Friday night. Just come by and see us. It'll usually be Sean, Jay, and Lee, and myself, and we'll get in depth into it. We get into some serious politics on Friday nights. We really do. We get into in-depth stuff and get kind of serious, and we get into real politics and real news. We don't really give you fake opinions. And when we're talking opinions, we tell you this is our opinion. Well, it's better that way. Marcus, what do you got? So you mean extraterrestrials? So look, this was one of the funniest things to me when I met Senator McDonald, not McConnell. McDonald's a different senator. He's passed now. He was in charge of the military appropriations committees, and I had met him because somebody had given me my name. He had seen what we all refer to as a TR3B, which is a black triangle. So somebody had given my name and said, if you want to know what they are, this guy can tell you. So I mean, he tried to call me several times, and I mean, come on. I'm thinking, you're senator who? You're a 25-year incumbent senator, and you wanting to talk to me? Bullshit. And I must have said that 100 times. So finally, I get a letter. I get an envelope, a vanilla envelope with a picture of his congressional ID and his driver's license. And I was like, well, this hoax is just getting out of control. It's exactly how I said it. And then, of course, I got some more calls and some more information, and I was ignoring it because I just didn't believe it. I didn't think that this guy wanted to come talk to me about aliens. So I don't know. It was about 6 months, 7 months past. I get a knock at my door, and I look, and there's two guys standing in black suits and black sunglasses. Like, Jesus Christ, the men in black just showed up in my house. There's a black limousine with the windows completely tinted out. I'm thinking. And he said, we want to talk to you. Come get in the car. And I'm thinking, I'm not getting in the car with you. I said, no way, buddy. He's like, no, it's not what you think. I said, dude, I'm not getting in the car with you. And then we're talking, it's like 30 years ago. But anyway, so finally the guy opens the door and I see it's him and he's waving. So I come over, I come sit down with him. And we're talking. So we're going to have lunch. They actually served lunch in the limo, by the way. It's very cool. But anyway, we were talking about it. He says, they told me to tell you. And he said, I'm going to tell you what I see. He said, I was driving home one evening in New Mexico. I was driving through the Los Alamos, through White Sands, basically, and which is a restricted no-fly zone. When I seen this black thing come flying over my car, And my car turned off for a few minutes and it turned back on. He said, I was trying to chase it to see what it was. And he said, I had other people in the car with me. I'm not going to mention who it was that was with him, but we'll just say it was family. And one of the kids was sketching, one of the people was sketching it. And so he shows it to me. I said, this is a TR3B. He said, oh, this is extraterrestrial. I said, oh, no, this is ours. And you just seen him just kind of lean back against the seat, and he looks at me, hey, Johnny. And he gives me this look like, what do you mean it's ours? He said, Joe, I'm the guy who doles out the money for all top secret projects in the United States. I've never seen this. I said, first off, it's been around for some time now. I said, I think the first time we registered a TR-31B flying was in the early 80s. I said, this is just a carryover the SR-71 and the F-117. I said, it's all this was. And I'm like, it's very advanced. I said, it's either magnetic drive or gravity drive. No one's 100% sure. It's probably our first attempt at inertial dampeners from what I understand. So they go on and on and on about it. So he's like, it can't be. It's got to be extraterrestrial. It can't be ours. It's got to be extraterrestrial. It's got to be alien. It's got to be somebody else's, like Russians or somebody. I said, Russians flying in the middle of Los Alamos, White Sands in New Mexico. That's an act of war, isn't it, boss?
Yeah.
That's like, and he looks at me like, oh, well, yes, it is. So he said, well, look, I just want to tell you thank you. He said, if I learn anything, I will make it known to you. He said, I checked you out. He says, you have an outrageously high security clearance. He said, so I won't get in any trouble if I share this as long as you don't go online and post. I said, I won't. And it was probably another 6 or 7 months, and I get a knock at the door, and it's UPS. Actually, it was FedEx with a vanilla envelope, which was about this thick. And he hands it to me, and I see the senator's name on it. And I'm like, wow. I open it up. It's the complete layout blueprints of the TR-3B. So I found out what kind of drive system it had. I found that it really did have inertia. I found out quite a few things, most of which I can't talk about here, but still, some of it I can. And so then I found out they were space flight capable, which at the time I really didn't know. I had the theories that they could go into space, but no one could prove it. Well, this said it's space flight capable, and they could make Mars in under 30 days. I was like, wow.
I think it makes it to the moon and back in like 8 hours.
I think it's faster than that, actually. It was lickety splickety fast. I know that. I know inside the atmosphere it's been clocked at Mach 12. And that's flying out near Pensacola, and they don't think it's nowhere near. And it leaves no contrails. It makes no noise. It does interfere with magnetics, so that's why we thought it was a magnetic drive, but I really think it's a gravity drive because something about the 3 things on the bottom, they're not always on. So when you see one, sometimes it'll be just solid black underneath there. There's actually 4 orbs. There's a big one in the center and 3 on each corner. But a lot of times you don't see them. A lot of times they're just off.
Yeah, they only deploy when they're on. You won't see the like a little bubble comes out. There's a great video, and I don't think
it must be their hover engines or something.
Well, there's a great video, and I don't know if it's a Billy Meyer video, but it looks like a Haunibu 2, and then it's kind of hovering in the picture, and then it kind of tilts so you can see the of it, and you can see these 3 little spheres going in and out.
Like what's their counter offer?
Did we miss something? Or are you talking about somebody else? I think she's talking about something else.
It's just true, though. It's true.
But you knew that. You woke up saying it's time for it to just die.
Maybe it is.
You know?
Maybe it is.
Okay, I'm not sure that was meant for us, guys.
Yeah, I don't think that's meant for us.
Anyway, hey Nolan, how you doing down there? Oh well, Rose, how you doing? Rose, how you doing? Anyway, these things, whatever these orbs are, must be some type of way they use it in hover mode or leaning back. I mean, these things.
Bob Lazar's got one of the better explanations of them. He calls them gravity emitters, or gravity wave guide emitters, more technically. And they have, I think he said they have 3 configurations. One is to travel within the atmosphere. Another is to travel in space, like locally, like from moon to the Earth, etc. And then the third one is to go faster than light.
Yeah, it's a very interesting craft. Well, the first time legit I had heard about him was flying in Belgium. For some reason, these things were flying all over Belgium. And one of them, which I don't think was ours because they said it was about the size of whatever city that was, some huge Belgium city. This thing was just like blotting out the sky.
I think it was.
Yeah, it was used. They actually scrambled F-16s for this, and it's
Mhm.
funny because you can hear him talking to NATO, and he's approaching it, and he's asking for permission to fire. Actually, it was three of them asking for permission to fire, and the guy's like, "No, what are you crazy? Look at the size of this thing." And this is a while back. This was before movies like Independence Day and stuff like. This is a while back, and but they wanted permission to fire. But as it got closer, the thing started glowing this kind of blue color, and all the instrumentation on the planes went out. The engine stayed running, so obviously they can control certain things on the planes.
Yeah, but systems go out, systems do not.
Yeah, so they turned him around, and then somebody gave him. I think somebody gave him permission to fire. One of them had permission to fire, and that guy had the parachute. Everything quit the jet. Everything. He said, I was cruising along. I was making ready to fire, locked on target, and then everything just quit, and I was ejected. He said, I didn't eject. I was ejected. He said something physically took control of the ejection. Now, remember, these are not push-button ejections in these planes. Between the pilot's leg is a ripcord that they actually have to physically pull to eject. So it's not an accidental. Yeah, it's not an accidental ejection. So, but still, he was tossed. And get this, they found the plane on a street, on a highway, not crashed, but landed, gears down, sitting on the highway, completely operational. Completely operational.
But did they knew to pop the canopy first and then eject him?
Well, no, on like F-16s, F-14s, when you pull, the canopies automatically
so it automatically, okay.
Yeah, so that's not all planes, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, but most of the state-of-the-art advanced fighters now, when you pull it, it ejects the canopy. Some of them don't, though. Some of them, there's actually an ejection system separate for the canopy, depending on Marcus. No, the canopy is the cover over the pilots. The glass, you see, that's the canopy. Yeah. And then it can be ejected for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, I mean, pilots really need to slow down some. You can't just be going ejecting at Mach 2. You probably get slammed against the tail and get cut in half or something like that. It's one of those things you got to be extremely careful with. No, you'd be surprised how many pilots get injured doing the ejection, not doing the battle. They hit something with a shoulder or a leg, or they come down the wrong way with their chutes,
or they hit debris or part of the canopy on the way out, or hit the canopy all the way. There's the one with Maverick, Top Gun? Doesn't one of the pilots, he ejects, but he does it wrong, and he's like, I think he's in a flat spin, and the canopy doesn't go away far enough, so when he ejects, the rockets in the seat shoot him into the canopy and kill him.
Yes, it's well, that's actually happened before. People, I was working Alvin Callender Field in New Orleans, so we used to bring in jets all the time. So one of the things you do when you bring in jets is you get the pilot out, and then one of us get in there and replace him. Well, as we're getting in, we're pinning everything. We're putting pins in the ejection sheet. We're putting pins in the missiles. We're putting pins in everything, so nothing can accidentally discharge and kill somebody. Well, this guy had done everything right except he had forgot to pin the ejection seat. He wasn't thinking about it. He gets into the hangar. He's getting out of the aircraft, and when he did, he slipped. And when he did, his foot caught the loop of the ejection seat. So he pulled without thinking about it, and the son of a bitch ejected him, squished him into the roof of the hangar, 2-story roof, and he killed him. I mean, he killed him. It was bad. It was. I seen what was left of him. It was not a pretty sight. It was just say horrible and leave it at that. It was very disgusting. It was his fault. No, it was his fault. I mean, I'm not hating on the guy because he's dead, but it was his fault. I mean, it was just he wasn't paying attention. And these jets are dangerous. You always have to be, like when I was a plane captain on the flight line, you have to be extremely careful. There's so many things out there that can kill you, especially when you see stuff like you're out there working, you've been launching jets all day long, and all of a sudden you see a flight of UFOs come by, and you're thinking, and you just start hearing the chatter because I got my earpiece and I'm hearing the chatter between the pilots and the tower, and they're back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, because nobody knows what the hell it is. And it's moving so much faster than any of our jets. I was listening to a guy when we had just got a squadron F-18s on board in them. It's just when they were brand spanking new. And a squadron of F-14s had run across a UFO and was trying to catch it. So they sent the F-18s, which were a little faster, to see if he could catch it. So this thing was just playing with them. it would back up. As a matter of fact, sometimes it would stop and let the plane almost hit it nose first, and then it would just take off or raise itself up. It was wreaking havoc on these pilots, scaring the crap out of them. And then it just came and hovered over three of them, just sitting there, blocking out all three of their canopies, sitting there, just like, what are you doing? It didn't matter what speed they changed or anything they did. It just sat there. It was just no problem. So if you go back to the Foo Fighters in World War II, the Foo Fighters were interesting because every Air Force reported seeing them. Every Air Force. Didn't matter who you were, Axis or Allies, it didn't matter. If you were
German, American, or French.
And they all reported seeing them the same way. They would do loop-to-loops around a plane. You'd see these weird green glow and then a green glowing streak, and they would disappear, and they would come back, and they would disappear, and they would come back, and they would disappear, and they would come back. And it was just nothing these bombers or fighters could do. I mean,
But there are some reports that in certain encounters they helped the Germans, the Japanese, and in other encounters they helped the Americans or the Allies by using weapons.
Yeah, but for the most part, what I understood, they were mostly more like rescue operations than they were.
Yeah.
So there was the one where the Navy had lost a ship just a couple of days after the one had sunk, where all the people got eaten by sharks. They had pushed the sinking ship in a group to an island somewhere. They actually used some kind of beam of light to push them near an island. So the ship sunk off the coast of the island where you could actually still see it, and everybody else that was on board made it on board the island. But that's not everybody. And then there was one in Germany where the Allies were bombing the living crap out of some munitions plants along with the railroads. They were and it was wreaking havoc in the city. And then all of a sudden, the next 14 bombs they dropped were duds. Didn't explode, which is an impossibility in those kind of conditions. They were just duds. But the really funny part is, we were worried that the Germans were going to get the bombs and look at the technologies, but somehow or another, they never could find the bombs. The Germans were perplexed by this because they seen them coming down. They were watching. They even got some reel-to-reel film out there that you can watch, which probably on the internet. That's probably digitalized now, but you can watch as these things were coming down and popping holes or falling through roofs of building, and nothing was blowing up. Well, in the row where the 14 were stopped, there was a huge complexes of people living there, where all the workers for the factory were living. They were like ghettos, projects, stuff like that. Huge. I mean, there was probably 10,000 people living there. They just say, well, maybe aliens felt like these are non-combatants. These people aren't trying to kill anybody. They're just trying to stay alive. Jimmy, they could have been Jews. Nobody knows. I really don't know. I mean, they used the Jews for a lot of things before they killed them. So it's a good chance that in those cases they were doing it. They were stopping it. But for the most part, they don't interfere. I mean, look at it from this point of view. They didn't stop Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which they could have. They didn't. They didn't stop Chernobyl, 3 Mile Islands, or Fukushima. All three of them. Or the flood.
Stop the flood.
It doesn't seem like they're really here to save us. It's not really what their job is. They're not here to wipe us out either, because they could have done that easily thousands of years ago. Remember, there's 8 billion people on the planet today. When UFOs first started being seen, there was less than probably 5 or 10 million people living on Earth. So they could easily wipe us out now with a plague if they wanted to. I imagine they could do a synthetic plague, so maybe silicone.
Well, who's to say they haven't? I mean, there's the 10 plagues of Egypt.
Well, I'm sure ET wants to see us become a productive member of society, or I should say the galactic society. Well, okay, so things are getting easier now to argue with scientists about, because now scientists even agrees that they think they found 7 to 9 Dyson spheres. Now, Jay and I have talked about Dyson spheres a lot, and a couple of us have talked about it. That's a what, level 3 technology, level 2 for sure, probably level 3 technology. That's seriously advanced. I mean, that's encasing they're either just encasing the sun and building a world inside of it, or they're encasing part of the solar system. Either way, you're talking about extremely advanced technology, but they believe they're out there. Well, the main reason, because the first one they found, it looks like they caught it while it was being built. So at first they thought this was an asteroid field to come, some kind of big asteroids, because it was blocking out the sun and here and there and here and there. And then they realized it was very consistent, and it wasn't like round objects. It was like plats, 100 miles across, 100 miles tall. It was like somebody was putting in, like when you build a ship, you get hunks of steel and you weld them.
You put it sections at a time.
It looks like that's what they were doing. So scientists do believe that they are out there. And there's been other things recently, like we have found oxygen and carbon on Mars many, many times now. Carbon really only comes from something alive or dying. I always hate to say just alive, because something dying can create it too. But like down here in the swamps, when different types of plants die, they create a big carbon base. I mean, it shits everywhere. It's well, no, and then not just carbon, they create methane and other things like that, which are also found on Mars. They have found gases on Mars that usually come from something that's alive or something dying, not
from biological processes, not mechanical.
Yeah, so this isn't this. So this is bothering a lot of people. But take a step forward to, what is it, P14440X, whatever the hell they call it, where they think they found a civilization somewhere around the same industrial revolution or age as we are. But remember, this thing is, 40 light years out? It's either 40 or 400 light years, whatever it is. If it's 40 light years out, then it's 40 more years more advanced than we are, at least, because that means we're seeing. If it's 4,000 light years out, that means they're 4,000 years more advanced. So when this was actually going on their planet was 4,000 years ago. So today they would be much more advanced. Well, because we're looking back in time. When we're looking through a telescope and the distance, we're time traveling backwards. So that's what we're seeing at whatever point of origin that happens to be.
Yeah, depending on how far away the object is, we could be seeing it in its dinosaur phase. We could be seeing it in its, Renaissance era. There's billions of years between us and the first habitable solar system.
Yeah. So right now, if you live 100 light years out, what you are listening to is Adolf Hitler bring in the Olympics.
1936 Olympics.
Yes, he's talking about the Olympics. Yes, he's hosting the Olympics. So that's the first thing you'd hear, and that's the first, because there's lots of other things that were transmitted, but the waves aren't strong enough to get that far out. But since then, things like "I Love Lucy," so anyone 60 light years out or less is listening to "I Love Lucy."
Star Trek.
Star Trek that came out in the 60s. So that's 50, 60 light years out too. Things that were in 2000, that's 25 light years out. So anything out there that's what they're listening to. Plus they've already heard all the other shit that's going past them for the last 100 years. So when you're looking at our society, I mean, really, it's screwy. And remember, the majority of television for a long time belonged to who? The United States. Yeah, at one point, the United States owned 98% of all televisions in the world. At one point, they owned 99% of all hot water heaters, and 90% of all commodes on the planet were in this country. It shows you how this country has brought the rest of the world up to where we are, because none of these things existed in their countries. Oh, no, there's still things like cold water flats in Europe. Oh, yeah. They still got people without hot water there. It's and not just that, there's still a lot of places there that have shared bathrooms.
Sometimes an entire level of an apartment building, 10, 12, however many apartments share one bathroom.
Yep.
Yikes.
It's a communal bathroom, but it's one bathroom. Well, that means you're in there with somebody else, the lady down the hall or the guy. I mean, look, come on, really. Well, no. And a lot of in places like China, unless you're living in if you're the 400 million in China that live like Americans, but the other 1 billion don't live that way.
Third world country.
And it's just different in every country. But, the U.S. has brought the world forward, and then Europe caught on and started bringing the world even. Well, for the longest, Europe was the one bringing the world forward. For 2,000 years, it was. And then for some reason or other, the U.S. just started jumping in leaps and bounds. We just were like, no. Because we were the first really true free nation. Maybe that's why the aliens were interested in it. I mean, we were really the first true nation where, you could actually say what you wanted, do what you wanted, and allowed to event what you wanted without being persecuted. Well, no, they still persecute people in Europe today. I was watching EU news. For our news shows, I listen. There's two different networks I watch European news on. I watch EU because everybody speaks English, and it makes it easier for me to understand. But then I watch the other one, which is each country itself, which a lot of times they're speaking English, but still sometimes they're not. But I look at it, one, I want to see how they're looking at us, and two, I like to listen to how they perceive the world versus the way Americans perceive the world. But anyway, getting back to ET's looking at all of us. So they were here a long time. So let's say first alien abduction happened somewhere 200,000 years ago. That means they went through all of Europe stuff. They went through Africa. They went through slavery. They went through all the craziness in Europe. They went through Michael and Raffaelli and Leonardo and Donatello and Galileo and what's his name? What's his name? The one invented gravity. Isaac Newton. And then, of course, there's Nostradamus. They lived through all of that. Which, by the way, most of them lived around the same time, within 25 years of each other, maybe 50 years of each other. Oh, no, the four great artists all lived in the same time frame. They were just, matter of fact, one of them was Michelangelo's protege. I can't remember which one it was now. But, so these are people who had a much better understanding of the real world around them, but because of politics, couldn't talk about it. Poor Nostradamus liked to got himself hung a couple of times. He's not the only one. Michael liked to got himself hung a couple of times.
Galileo almost got killed.
Yeah, he almost got killed.
What's his name? The other guy. My brain. The Italian guy. He almost was killed.
The problem with all of this is now in today's society, we want people to go out there. So think about this. When I was a kid, geeks were always picked on and bullied. Today, geeks are the new millionaires. Look at Elon Musk or Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg, for that matter. They're all three geekers. They probably got picked on the entire time they were in school. And now they're all multi-billionaires. Different world, ladies, when you're looking for a new man. What do you mean? What I consider who a manly man? Zuckerberg? Ask me that on Friday night. Yeah, ask me that on Friday night. I have nothing against Mark. I have nothing against any of them, really. Other than, some idiot allowed half the internet to get shut down the other day,
Yeah.
Because they put in the wrong code. I mean, that was just ignorance. And it also shows how ignorant Microsoft is that their system can be brought down that easily. Mm-hmm. Well, I remember when it happened, a friend of mine wrote to me, it's the freaking aliens. I said, why would the aliens want to bother with our internet? Yeah. And it really wasn't the internet per se as much as it was airlines and hubs and businesses. I mean, my computers are set up different, so none of that shit could get in here. There wasn't no new updates coming in the system without permission. Yeah, so I didn't have any errors with mine. Mine worked fine. The station was up. Even though I ran into things like at my bank, all the main screens were down. The ones where they are logged into some other network somewhere, and they had like commercials and shit running in the background. All of that stuff was down. And I noticed I stopped at Raising Cane's to get some chicken on the way home, and all their billboards were down. They had the old paper menus taped down to the counter, but they were still in operation, even though some of the other restaurants had closed because they couldn't figure out how to do anything. Because y'all don't know what cash is anymore, you morons. All you people with cards are screwed, but anybody with cash could still get food.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, somebody said, well, how do we calculate? I said, there's a calculator on your phone, isn't there? Oh, yeah, that's right. And I'm like, what generation was that? I'd rather not say what generation that was. It's, what's that? The Greys and the Reptilian. Wait, let me put this up here where we can all see this. Boom. See, that's why I like y'all to come into one of the chats like YouTube or Facebook or something like that, because you can see when I post the questions. When you post them to my messenger, nobody gets to see them but me. What's that, Brian? Well, I like talking about the Greys and the Reptilians and the humans. I think the Reptilians get a bad rap. Prior to Christ, everybody loved the Reptilians. after the Christians came along, everybody hated the reptilians. Well, so the Egyptians, the Sumerians, all those races back then worshipped the reptilians. They actually had quite a few reptilian gods. The Mayans, Aztecs, the Incans, the Toltecs, all of them as well worshipped the reptilians. Even quite a few Native American tribes still do to this day. So why were the reptilians all friendly and loved and kind, and the humans all hated so much? I mean, what was it that made everybody hate them so much? And then why, when the era of Christ came at the turn of at the beginning of 2000, at the beginning of zero, why did it change so quickly? Was it just press? Was it just the church out there saying that reptiles, even because they did say that the serpent made Eve eat the apple? I don't think the serpent made Eve do anything, but
Yeah,
still.
I think that was strictly all propaganda against reptilians. Like I said in the last show, we were talked about this kind of stuff, and I said that throughout my research, I've been doing it since the 70s. All the races of aliens we've ever heard of, they're good this year, they're bad the next, good the next, bad the next, and it just all of them keep flip flopping, and it all depends on, I guess, the person's perspective. Whoever you're talking to, whether they're an abduction experiencer or a UFO experiencer, and that's one of the other things that's scary. We talked about earlier about why the governments are so scared, because they say they don't know, and that's the scary part, is they honestly don't know the whole story. And when something, you go out in the woods and you see a bear and it sees you, you're scared to death because you don't know what that bear is going to do. It's either going to run away or it's going to eat you to death. And that's the situation with the UFOs. As simple as I can make it. We don't know what they want. We don't know what their agendas are. We don't know how long they've been here. We don't know if there's some sort of nefarious outcome. Like either we become food, or do they just, decide, oh, the experiment's over. Clean the slate.
Well, I'm too high in cholesterol, so I ain't got to worry about the food part. But well, there's an Outer Limits episode that reminds me of this. So, what do you mean you don't know what the Outer Limits is? Well, look it up. Anyway, it's like the Twilight Zone, just a different kind. So anyway, there's this episode of Outer Limits where these aliens come to Earth and they meet with the UN. And they tell the UN we've been very disappointed in Earth. And we're thinking about wiping Earth out and starting all over. So the UN asked them to give them one more chance. So the aliens agreed to it. So the UN got together and got this big peace treaty and got a one world government, got everything together, and they presented to the aliens. And what does the alien do? Order the ship to wipe out all humans because we were put here to be a warrior race and to conquer the known galaxies around us. That's what we were put here for. So they wiped us all out to start all over again. We weren't aggressive enough. Well, that's the problem. We always just assume aliens think like we do, and they don't. A race that's evolved on a different world in a different place of the galaxy that had different things happen to themselves and their species. We don't know what happened to the Greys.
Yeah,
or the reptilians or the humans. We don't know what their life story is. We're just assuming we know.
We also don't know what their society is like. And, there's reports that some alien races have said. I think this was the Arcturians who have said this. The tall whites, that in their society they don't favor lesser animals like cats and dogs. They don't have pets, and they even said to Charles Hall. They said to him that on their planet, their homeworld, they destroyed all the lesser animals because they no longer had any need for them, which I think is cruel and unusual. But, after billions of years of evolution, are we going to enjoy pets?
Yeah, humans are kind of funny about it. A lot of humans enjoy pets because it fills a spot, whether it's a lover or a kid or whatever it is. I know a lot of empty nesters have pups and pets and stuff like that. Our emotional standards haven't got that high yet, but the reptilians are supposed to be. We're supposed to be almost like them. I always want to say like them, like us, but it's more like us, like them. I mean, they're basically us, or we're basically them. They believe in a strong family value. They have basically one religion. They have great cities all over the place, and they have these great dome libraries with these orbs that all you have to do is put your hand on and think, and it brings up whatever you think about anything known in the known universe that's in there. If you think about it, it'll show it to you, and if you think about it more, it'll download it into your head. No, download it into your head, people. So one of the problems for humans is we're not really ready for the type of ways that the other three main races visit here communicate. One, the Greys, almost all of their stuff is through thought. We're just not there yet. It's not that there's not telepaths on the planet. There's quite a few of them these days, but um, it's not telepathy as much as it is telekinesis. How do you operate a ship through telepathy unless the ship is designed to receive telepathy that way, like the Greys' saucers are? They just pick it up and then whatever you think is what they do, because they have the ability themselves, because they're alive, to click the button, switch or whatever it is. But for the reptilians and humans, they still have what we call click and switch technology. They don't have any wires or anything. It's all wireless, but it's click and switch, which means there's still a button you have to press, or something you have to press, or something you have to click. But they still are telepathic, so they do it through telekinesis, really. It's how they do it. But when it comes right down to it, the Greys' mental abilities are so much more powerful than the other races that it's scary. See, when I got into this field 40 years ago, I was told that the Greys work for the reptilians and they work for the humans and they do this and they do that and that's what they do. And then we found out, well, that was wrong. The only ones that the Greys work for is the light beings in the council. They don't work for anybody else. Matter of fact, they were, from what we were told, they were a race that was designed. So they were just a race out there living when the reptilians, when the light beings came in from a different galaxy and found them. They came to this galaxy. When they found this galaxy, it was just a big warring mess. And they found the Greys and made them the galactic police force, basically. And since then, they have been slowly but surely putting the galaxy back to no wars, no fuss, no mess. No moss, man. Yeah, no moss. That's right. But we don't really know for 100%. We're just going what this contactee been told. So one of the things that ICAR does is what we call a comparison study. So if you've got 10,000 people who have told you the same thing, that has never been made public, that may be interesting. Well, currently ICAR has 144,000 cases on file. And all of those cases have similarities in them. And since we only talk about some stuff, see, some abduction criteria is non sequitur. You can't talk about it. If we talk about it, we would never know who was telling us the truth and who was lying. It would be too easy for people to fake and hoax it if they had that kind of criteria up front. It's bad enough. The stuff we have released is now, and when someone talks to you, they tell you about it. What I love is when someone from MUFON or one of the other agencies tells me about this, something my organization, put out there. I'm like, really? And who taught you that? Oh, yeah. I'm like, really? I said, because we're the ones that invented that. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah.
Well, actually, that's also how all like police investigations go. When they, particularly with like high profile murders and that kind of thing, they don't reveal all the details. And when they go out and interview, particularly people in the area, to see if any people saw any weirdness, they do the same thing, just to make sure they keep certain facts back, so that if someone reveals that fact to them before it's been publicly released, they know, this guy knows something that he's not telling us. He's part of this. So yeah, it's a great investigative tool to find out who's lying and who isn't.
Well, it is. I mean, it's a strange thing. It's like when you hear the Sumerian Egyptian stories and the Dogon stories about how the human race came to be, how this human race came to be, because the reptilians were stealing the slaves from the Sumerians and breeding with them. Mm-hmm. First off, I guess I know the Greys came here because the reptilians and the humans were about to get into a nasty fight. And you can't really blame the humans. They created this subspecies.
Well, I was under the impression they were already under a big fight.
Well, no, they weren't actually. They were long before that. So it's when you listen to them talk about the light beings, they talk about the light beings in hundreds of millions of years. So it's hard for us humans to kind of wrap our head around these kind of things. I mean, they're supposed to be something in upwards of 100 billion year old species. that they came from another galaxy, and some rumors say they came
Well,
from
they can't be
2
more than
other
13 because
galaxies.
that's how old we think the whole universe is. So
Yeah. Right. So yeah, well, currently it's estimated at 14 point. Well, it depends who you talk to. Anywhere from 13.3 to 14.4. It's the same thing with our solar system. I mean, our galaxy. It was 60,000 light years, and it was 100,000 light years. Now it's 160,000 light years across. So what happens is, ladies and
it
gentlemen, we keep.
contracts and expands. So I think the actual number is like 70,000 light years
Oh
wide.
no, this is what they found. They found a whole other ring. There used to be 3 rings.
Okay.
It's 4 rings now. Yeah, they found out.
I hadn't heard that.
So when they
Well,
were
we are
tracking,
still in the process of swallowing another galaxy, are we not?
actually 5. Sagittarius is the biggest one, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So our galaxy's eating other galaxies. In a billion years, Andromeda is going to eat us. Oh yeah, my friends, because it's like 3 times our size.
And it's on a collision course with us.
Yes, it's a billion years from now, people. So you got a little time to think about it, but still,
It's a little bit, yeah.
it's a little bit. But as they get closer together, things are going to speed up because they're attracting to each other. They're going to pull towards each other. So as we get closer and closer, so right now it's a billion. When we hit about 700 million years, that might cut it down to 500 million years. But regardless, we're going to crash into it. Just a matter of time. It's somehow how some of the super galaxies, they call them, get built because they go around sucking up other galaxies. Also, they kind of wonder about those clusters of galaxies where they're all clustered together and they're just sitting there with each other and they're not running into each other and nothing. They don't know if that's natural or something else. No one really knows how that happens, but it also
Perhaps they don't have an equal amount of mass in them and they can no longer attract any closer. That's as close as they get.
But when I first seen one of these, this was like in 75, the first time I seen one. I said right then and there, this just blows Big Bang Theory out of the water. And I still remember my friend who's a scientist goes, "What do you mean? No, it doesn't." I said, "Yeah, it does." I said, "Just stopped and they're parked. If the galaxy was expanding like you said it was, they would just still be going outwards unless something's got them anchored." And I said, and that's the case, then you're really talking, and it's not just one cluster, guys. There's several of these clusters out there all over the place and at different points in time and space continuum. So they have no idea how this happened. Some have more galaxies than others. It's
and they reveal that some galaxies are speeding up and some are slowing down, and some, like you said, seem to be not moving. The not moving thing could be that they're moving so directly at our telescopes and lenses that the angle appears like it's not moving, but it is actually moving closer toward us.
See, these are clusters of galaxies, so you would see one of them moving somewhere. I mean, one of the galaxies we're talking about has 250 galaxies in the cluster.
Wow.
That's a big, and they got them bigger than that. So these are just clusters that for some reason, at first they said maybe some type of gravitational thing that they all pulled together like planets orbiting a giant black hole. Maybe there's something there that they're all orbiting that they just can't see, like a supermassive black hole of some kind, which is possible. But the fact that none of them's getting eaten and they're all sitting on the perigee is in itself is just odd to start off with. But it also proved, because remember they said that there was not going to be any galaxies near where the Big Bang started. And then they found that not only is there, but there's super galaxies there, huge ones.
Well, they've been sitting there for how many billions of years?
Yeah, well, since the creation. So, and then there's a new theory about pre-Big Bang, that some of these things were already here.
Oh, that's an interesting theory.
So, and this is what's so funny about the Big Bang, guys. Remember, so we're talking about a piece of matter, depending on who you want to believe, that you either can't see or it is so big that you can't imagine it. But regardless, it blew up. And everything you see in the night sky, everything, hundreds of billions of trillions of galaxies, beings, planets, world, and everything else came from that one spark.
Well, I found when scientists say anything, especially to one extreme and the other, and there's only 2 groups, one is the negative and one is the positive, that an amalgam of both of their theories is usually actually correct. So, with the Trieste experiment, they said they won't find any life at the bottom of the ocean, and the other half said that we will find something, bacteria, and they found a fish, an actual like bony fish. And
they found all kind of stuff now. I mean,
and I think what we find about our galaxy, our universe being created, is that perhaps there was something else that was there before that was partially destroyed, or maybe beings in that pre-explosion universe were experimenting with something, trying to make their own universe, and this is what the result is.
And then some people think that it is just a snapback that created us. So if the truth of expansion is correctly, there will come a point where one or two things have to happen. Either the universe completely pulls apart because there's nothing left to expand, or it snaps back to the beginning, which means it gets to a point and then it stops. And then it gradually starts going backwards and starts getting faster and faster and faster and faster till it gets
that's
back.
the main theory of how the universe has been alive. It explodes, it expands, it explodes, it expands. But going to the actual catalyst that made the explosion, you said that what it was either is something so small we can't see it, or something so big we can't imagine it. Well, in order for something to compress and explode in that fashion and create the universe, it would have had to have started out as something significant. I don't know how large, but you can't be microscopic and then contract on yourself and explode and destroy and make a universe. I mean, look at stars. They're huge things that when they go nova, they go and shrink really fast and then explode.
Well, I was listening to the guy talking about a super massive black hole. He said if you could dump it out and emptied it, he said you'd probably find something about the size of a softball, which is probably a compression of 100 billion worlds. He said, so if you could release that, then all of those worlds and all those stars and everything it's eaten would go back to where it came from. So what they're trying to say is if there was some kind of supermassive, huge black hole, something we don't understand that was there waiting, and it sucked everything in, then it got to a point where it was over full and it exploded and created us. See, all these theories are crazy, people, because nobody has a clue, and there's no way we're going to find out until we go there.
There's an even weirder one about the black holes, even supermassive ones. One of the speculations is that whatever is absorbed or sucked into the black hole emerges through a tunnel, a wormhole, through a white star, and I can't remember which one it is, either a pulsar or what's the other one, quasar. So one of those two, or maybe both. But they say the speculation is that whatever material is sucked into the black hole is, like you said, condensed, like maybe to the size of a softball, and then when it comes out through the quasar, I think it's the quasar, 1 teaspoon of quasar material is as heavy as, like, I think 3 aircraft carriers or 3.5 aircraft. A lot of, hundreds of tons of Earth weight.
Well, they
don't come back as their unit. Whatever, if it swallowed a galaxy, it doesn't come back as a galaxy. It's destroyed. That's the working theory of how a black hole works.
Yeah, and then so some people think black holes are just stars on the other side. No,
yeah,
Jeffrey,
that's what I'm saying. It's white on black on one side, white on the other. One's a super dense white star. The other is a super dense black star.
So a small black hole would be like a yellow sun, like ours. Even though our sun will never create our sun won't go supernova. It doesn't have the mass. It has to be like a white star or a blue star, one of the super massive. It doesn't have to be a big star; it just has to be a super massive star.
The next phase is a white dwarf for our
star. So what our star is going to do in 3 billion years, it's going to turn into a red giant, and it's going to stretch out all the way to Jupiter. It's going to eat Mercury. It's going to eat Venus. It's going to eat Mars, and it's going to eat us. Some people think it might stop at Mars, so maybe, but anyway it goes, the first 3 planets are getting eaten no matter what. More than likely the 4th planet is too. But that does a lot of things. One, that turns all those moons out there around Saturn and Jupiter into inhabitable places, because now they have up close sunlight in regular heat. So it'll change. It'll melt all that ice and all those ice worlds that are out there and turn them into liquid worlds. It will change. And we see this in other solar systems. We've seen this happen. What do you mean? Oh, the Sagittarius galaxy is a small galaxy that the Milky Way is eating. So there's a theory, actually there's a couple theories, but there's a theory that suggests that Earth is from the Sagittarius galaxy, that it was deposited here along with all these red giants. So the galaxy we're eating right now is full of red giants and red dwarfs and stuff, and they're being deposited all around us. And they're thinking, because they're all around Earth, that Earth might have been in the middle of them while they were being eaten and was drugged in here. Well, we're talking a long time ago, people, millions and millions of years ago, but that could have been one of the things they were drugged in here. And they think that could have been the cause of 1 or 2 of the great extinctions when they were drugged into this galaxy 60 or 70 million years ago. Well, we also know. See, this is what's so weird. We know that Earth, Venus, and Mars, and whatever was this planet between Mars and Jupiter, all went catastrophic somewhere between 55 and 65 million years ago. Not billion, million years ago. So we know something happened. So we're pretty sure that there was a planet there that was either crushed by the tidal forces of Jupiter, or maybe it was Nemos and Nemos ran in and crushed it. Whatever it was, something destroyed it. And we know now it was a planet. They had to get off that bullshit that it was remnants of a planet, because they have found metals and stuff now that can only be made by
Once
the
there's gravity
creation
and an
of a
atmosphere.
planet. Yeah. So and not just they found crystals and other stuff that can only be made by the pressure of gravity, by a forming planet. So I don't know, guys. You take it for what it is, but it is what it is.
Well,
Mars?
we've
Yeah.
also spoken about the fifth planet, the asteroid belt, Mars and Earth and Venus, having all had at one time possibly all having life and atmospheres, and whatever blew through the inner planets completely destroyed the fifth planet, ripped the water and atmosphere off of Mars, left a huge gouge in it that looks like an electrical discharge. Tilted the Earth so that Earth no longer spins like this. It spins like, I think it's 27 degrees, and it wobbles like that. All the other planets, they spin like that, but they stay straight. And when they go around the sun, Venus spins backwards from all the other planets, and Uranus, one of its moons, instead of spinning like this, like all the other planets, it spins on this axis.
Yeah.
So there's something came through and just like a pool table. Something broke up the pool balls.
And then what is it? Neptune or Uranus? One of them spins the orbit's in a different range. It goes opposite of all the planets in its orbit. It's things happen. You're talking about it. So what most humans don't understand is, first off, I don't think y'all understand the size of the asteroid field between Mars and Jupiter. It's massive.
It's huge.
It's supposed to be 5 times the size. If there was a planet that was 5 times the size of Earth, which coincident is what everybody says in the reboot was. We'll get to that in a minute. But wait, the Oort cloud is actually bigger than the asteroid belt.
Huge.
They're pretty sure they got planet-sized crap of ice just floating around out there. The size of it, at least the size of Mercury or bigger. Some they think maybe the size of Earth just floating around out there. Well, they don't want to call them planets yet, because if they're completely ice and say like there's a small core that's maybe the size of our moon and everything else is ice, they're not going to call that a planet. That's what happened to Pluto and Charon. So Pluto's a very interesting place because, one, it's not a dead world like we thought it was. It's a very active world. And it does have oxygen on it, and it does have water that runs underneath the ice sheets because of they think because of the way Charon orbits Pluto, the way it pulls back and forth, it's creating heat inside the planet. So that's another thing. These moons orbiting Jupiter also get heat from Jupiter, and because of the gravitational fields moving around it. That is true, Jimmy. The rings of Saturn will eventually disappear. They actually put a time on it. I forgot what it was. It's not like around the corner, but it will disappear eventually.
Probably a few million years, I would think.
Yeah. Well, they're not the only. And technically, Jupiter has rings. You just can't see them.
Well, we can't see them. They run also vertically on Jupiter. Yeah. They run from pole to pole, not equatorially.
And what is it? Neptune or Uranus? One of them have rings too. So
all of the outer planets have rings except for Pluto. Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, and Jupiter all have rings.
Well, you know why that is, Jimmy, right? It's because they have high gravity and they catch stuff as it goes by. Jupiter and Saturn are like the vacuum cleaner of the solar system.
That's not their name. Their nickname is actually the shepherds. Those 4 planets are known as the shepherds. They shepherd all the large traveling space bodies that can fly into the inner planets and kill us. A few get through, but most of them wind up being either
look at those
outer planets or parts.
So
or
if
they get turned into rings.
If Jupiter wasn't there when the Pearl-Levy comet came through, Earth wouldn't exist today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at least half that debris would have came here. Well, no, they had already proved it. That's why they were so happy that
blow everybody's mind. Also, Saturn, which has the most moons, 260 some moons,
it's got a lot.
It's got a lot. It's got the most rings and the biggest rings. think of this. Most of those rings could have probably been things that were orbiting Saturn before, recorded history, before men were around, and then those moons broke up and things were caught, and that's how those rings got. But they're enormous. Those rings, how many Earths can go across the whole width of the rings of Saturn? Like 14, 15 of them.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's an enormous amount of material. That just think about what. I mean, if we can find an asteroid just past Mars that's all gold, what kind of asteroids will we find in those rings of Saturn and Jupiter and the other bigger planets? Maybe find a titanium one or a uranium one, things that we need that will help us travel through space.
Oh, there is so much stuff out there that we need that we could be using on this planet.
We may even find some elements we don't have on Earth.
I'm sure we're going to find some new elements. And I'm sure the amount of, just in the asteroid belt, we've already found stuff. That one asteroid can supply us with these metals for the next 100,000 years. And there's tons of these out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the asteroid belt. That's not any rogue shit running around, any asteroids running around, any comets running around. So there's a couple of comets that regularly come through that could be re-diverted to Mars that could actually put oceans on Mars. That's how much water they contain.
Oh, yeah.
There's at least 2 planets or 2 planetoids they know in the Oort cloud that they could be towed in here that would put literally a Pacific-sized ocean on Mars.
Almost all of the objects allegedly from, I don't know if the James Webb discovered this, but almost all of the objects in the Oort cloud are covered in some amount of ice or not.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's rocky planets out there. It's just for some reason they're all being covered. It's cold out there. There's very little heat from our sun.
But likely in the Oort cloud, we're not going to find very dense materials. We're going to find the very lightest materials. We may even find a material that's lighter and stronger than aluminum out there.
But it's an interesting area. We'll get to it eventually. It's we've got 2 ships that have already flown through it, but it's 2. I want to say it's 2 light years out. Well, our sun's influence is 4 light years. So technically, our sun reaches Proxima Centauri. Those 2 suns overlap. So about 3 light years out, they each overlap each other. So I don't know what that means if you were living out there, if you would get extra heat or extra radiation or what it would be.
Yeah, it means we're probably getting some radiation from that other sun. Yeah.
Well, they used to think the influence of the sun was only 2 light years, and then they realized that our solar system technically is bigger than 2 light years. So then they had to rethink about how far does it affect. And not just that, how other suns affect our sun. Things that are close by, like Proxima Centauri. One of the Proximas is 3.8 light out. The other one's 4.1 light years out. That is one of the first places we're going to go because it's so close to us. Even at half light speed, it's only going to take 8 years to get there. And we'll have built stepping stones the whole way there, so we won't even have to fly all the time. Stop here, stop there, refuel, get off the ship, go here, pick up another ship. They'll probably be building big ships way out in the solar system. So people talk about, we're going to build them here by Earth and launch them through Zone L11. We're going to do that with mid-sized ships because there is a current that runs through the middle of our solar system that can be used to pick up speed. But big ships that may have engines that can go half light speed or even light speed will be built further out. So that way, if there's a problem and they explode or engage or something, not going to end our planet.
If you notice in any of the sci-fi venues, and it doesn't matter which one it is, Star Wars, Star Trek, any show that had a sci-fi themed space adventure, none of them enter light speed when they're within a solar system. They always stop outside of it and then guide and then drive through the outer planets to whatever planet they're going to, all the time. So is that real science? Is there a reason for that? I would think that if you're going to be going, stopping somewhere from the speed of light and then stopping to like parking speed, I guess, you don't want to be traveling through planets because you're gonna crash into them. So that's my thinking, is that you have to stop before you get to your destination so you can evade getting hit by the outer planets.
I don't know, Jimmy. We're going to find out how all of this works soon enough. Faster than light travel is not that far out. Jay and I have talked about it. It's not so much Somebody's going to invent a light speed engine pretty soon. That's not the problem. There's two bigger problems. One, inertial dampener, so every time a damn thing kicks in, you're not smushed to the wall. And two, how can you see out? You're going to have to be able to see out. So let's say you're traveling 4 times the speed of light. That means you're going to have to be able to see out at least 1,000 light years ahead of you so you know what's out there. Because even a micrometeorite at those kind of speeds can do unruffled.
Will destroy you,
You have to have deflector fields, inertial dampeners, weapons that can go fire faster than your ship is going. Remember this. So it might be not something. I mean, if you're at light speed, 4 times light speed, can you build a laser that can say go 6 times the light speed? See, remember, even on our jets today, so our new jets that we're talking about doing Mach 5 and Mach 6 will only be able to fire hypersonic missiles.
Yeah.
Because regular missiles, it would plow over at those speeds. That's why the SR-71 never carried missiles, because they were worried if they shot one, the damn plane would plow over the missile because it goes faster than the missiles do.
Here's a good question here also. How many forms of FTL do the aliens have? Well, so speculation from them is that we have an antimatter type drive, which is the one Bob Lazar talks about, which is basically what did he call it? Electrogravitic drive. And then there's some aliens, and I don't know exactly the technology that drives this. There's some that actually fold space. They're able to manipulate space and take the 2 points they want to go to and bring them close together, open up a temporary wormhole between the two of them, and then unfold the space, and they've gone from one to the other without really going very far. And then the other is like typical types of drives like you see in Star Trek, those kind of things where an energy source is utilized, a fuel source on top of that, which depletes. And in Star Trek's universe, they can go up to warp 10, which is 10 times the speed of light, which is 186,000 miles per second.
Yeah, 186,000 miles per second.
186,000 miles per second.
What's that, Jimmy? No, people always send me that 144. I think people just get confused with it, but no, 186,000 miles per second, not per mile, per second.
Per second.
That is hauling ass. Gate technologies might be,
the theory of gravity. If you fall and you don't have anything to land on, if you jumped off the let's say the top of the Empire State Building, and then the Earth wasn't there, and you just kept on falling, you fall at 33 feet per second. So you would eventually achieve light speed. You'd probably be dead before you got there, or be an old man or whatever. But just saying.
Well, no, people. That's what we do. Now, I mean, right now we could probably get a ship really close to light speed. Whether it stay together or get it destroyed or what would happen. We just don't have that kind of technology yet, but we're getting there. Hey, Robert, how you doing? US, what you up to, babe? Well, super soldiers, I don't see. Super soldiers is hard because there's no real proof. A lot of people talk about them, and a lot of people say they exist. But when I say there's no real proof, I say there's no real proof here on Earth. Put it this way. If the United States had a group of super soldiers, Xi Jinping, Putin would be dead. Yeah. It's just like telekinesis abilities. If the U.S. possessed telekinesis abilities, come on, man. The Saudi leaders would be dead. I mean, not the Saudi leaders. The Iranian leaders would be dead. Kim Jong-un would be dead. Xi Jinping would be dead. Imagine. Most of the Communist Party would be dead. Putin would be dead. I mean, and it would look like natural causes. They had an aneurysm. They had a heart attack.
There's also an even better one, and I don't know if this is all just pure bull honkery or what, but there's a movie called Dreamscape with Dennis Quaid, and the concept of it is kind of like PSYOP stuff from the CIA, remote viewing, but a little different. What the idea was is that they take some psychics and with certain drugs and breathing patterns, and they learn how to like meditate, and it's a weird thing, but they're able to enter a target's dream and then interact with the person in their dream. And then they thought, well, why don't we try to kill them in their dream? Because the old wives' tale is if you die in your dream, you die in real life. So they were creating dream assassins who were going into these people's dreams and then actually killing them. And it's a pretty cool movie. It would have been a great television show, but it's sort of a sleeper. So if you have a streaming device, look up Dreamscape, give it a watch. It's a pretty good movie. who's to say that the Greys with their advanced brain techniques and powers can't do that to us? Get in our brains while we're sleeping and go, "You're dead."
Well, they probably can.
I wouldn't put it past them.
But the super soldier projects, a lot of these projects are hard because they've never been deployed on our planet. Not left any evidence of such a thing. I mean, there are times where if we had them, we'd have used them. Barack Obama would have used them. Trump would have used them. Ronald Reagan would have used them.
The first president that had them available to him as a viable truth, even though they might have been top secret, they would have been used. Just like the bomb was used, just like the U-2 spy plane was used, SR-71, any viable, really good technology that the government can get their hands on and use before anyone finds out and win the war, they'll do it. Absolutely. That's why we blew up those two cities in Japan.
So and yeah, it is. But one of the reasons about super soldiers was they were not ever supposed to be Earthlings. They were supposed to be used off world. They were not even allowed to come back here because
the old Rome war policy thing is
because of who and what they were and the things they did. They weren't even allowed to come back. So if it is true, we'll never know because they'll never come back to Earth. They'll be off world if they're even still alive.
It's the same policy that Caesar had in Rome. The Roman soldiers and the generals are allowed to come into Rome for to talk to Caesar and what have you, but soldiers were not allowed to come into Rome or to the capital city, and they also were not allowed to live in it. So they all had to live outside, their great capital city. They could not even visit on vacation.
It's a strange thing. I mean, it's
a good policy to keep your army out of your capital city, though.
Yeah, it is a good policy because you never know when they might decide to take over.
Yes, and they did. So,
well, frankly, the Greys' mental abilities are far beyond the rest of the races that we know of. The Greys' abilities are far better than the humans. So, like I said, when I first got into this, I was always told that the Greys were subservient, and then we found out later on that both the reptilians and the humans and other races are scared of the Greys. One, when you look at their head compared to everybody else's, their brain is magnitude. Even with the humans whose head goes back here and the reptilians whose heads are this big around, they're nothing compared to the Greys. The Greys have probably 5 times, maybe even 10 times the brain power. So, you'll hear this. You'll hear people talk about, there'll be a 9-foot reptilian standing there, 8-foot reptilian, 600 pounds, and this little 4-foot Grey comes walking by. You see the reptilian put his head down like this. Yeah, because he don't want to piss off the little Grey who melt his brains. That's why. So we as time goes on, a lot of the stuff that was taught to us that came out of the 50s, 60s, a lot of it was just wrong. But nobody was doing research like we do today. And the way ICAR is, how strict we are about research, no one else but us does that. No, MUFON does not do real research. MUFON does MUFON research. Yes, they do MUFON research. That's what they did. No, I used to be a member of MUFON. I left MUFON because they became the Black Hole of Calcutta. No matter what you sent them, you never got a response back. And I was friends with Walt Anderson. I worked with them. I was a director. Linda was a director. We were in charge of research. What done me is one time I asked them, I said, do you think aliens could be taken somewhere? Oh, no, Joe, they don't come. They don't fly all the way across space just to take our citizens. And I was like, really? They don't? And no, but they do. So, and I see Leah just posted about dreams. The thing about dreams are the first place contact manifests itself. That's what dreams are. So when you start dreaming ET, it's because of 2 things, really. One, while on board a ship or while in the presence of one of the aliens, you showed an interest in what was going on. And 2, you did not freak out while you were doing it. So at that point, they decided, okay, this person may be useful to our agendas, which is many agendas. So at that point, they start letting you, because most humans are just not ready to be told point blank, they let you tell yourself. So it usually manifests in dreams first. You'll start having weird dreams about weird stuff. And it can manifest in so many different ways. Flying through space, going to other planets, seeing weird aliens, fighting weird battles. It's just so many ways it can manifest itself. but the dreams usually are reoccurring dreams. They don't usually just go away. So if it's
Yeah.
a fantasy dream, it'll probably go away in a day or two. But if it's not, it'll probably stick with you. And it'll probably stick with you for life. So those dreams are just trying to help you to go to the next step. To say, okay, well, I'm having this. Let me see what I can
if they
find
have a
in real life.
plan, if there's an agenda, if there's some kind of agenda, they should just be like, hey, this is what we need you to do. Don't fuck up. You know what I mean? Like, this is what you need to do, instead of being so elusive and so, mysterious to the point where it just drives everyone insane. It's not conducive to getting anything done if they're not telling people what they want them to do or why it is that they've been being contacted for any reason.
But it may not be something that we can do physically, like as in to help whatever it is they're doing. It seems whatever they're doing, they're looking for something. They haven't found it yet, and it has to do with genetics and mixing whatever they're doing with the genetics they take from abductees and other people on the planet. What they do with that in their ships after they leave the planet, who knows? And that's part of their agenda, but I don't think that is the whole of it.
No, because
I think there's only one place on Earth where the entire story of our existence can be found still is in the basement of the Vatican. But if we were to find out the full truth, some people might get very irritated, perhaps violent.
Well,
wait, maybe the Scientologists are right, and we were a bunch of weird aliens on another planet, and they threw us all into a volcano, and we all. Sorry, that theory just cracks me up. Actually, Bruce, one afternoon when I got time, I will go through the whole entire theory. No, we're getting short on time. I'll be sure I'm going to be hanging out with Michelle after a while. She just popped in the room, Michelle DeRoche from the Outer Realm. She's got a couple of interesting guests on with her tonight. We'll be talking alien stuff, so y'all stop by. I won't pop right in because I got to grab something. I got to get a Coke when we get off air, but I'll be joining her a few minutes after that. No, y'all be sure to stop by. It's the Outer Realm. It follows this show immediately. Yes, y'all can pop right in. And same venue you're watching on this one, you can be watching on that one. What's that, Carly? See, the alien agendas are funny. They have lots and lots of things that they're here doing. And as far as the bodies go, so when I first got in this field, everybody was telling me because they were seeing these rows of bodies everywhere. So everybody was telling me that the Greys and the reptilians and human were all using human DNA to make themselves better. Okay. Really? These are advanced races far beyond us in anything, mentally, physically, technologically. They're just eons beyond us.
That's not to say that we don't have some genetic trait that they don't have or perhaps have lost.
No, but that's the problem. We have all of their traits. That's the whole problem. It's so we know the human aliens created the first species of man. We know the reptilians intervened with that species and created a species that's here today. We know the Greys later on introduced Rh negative to society about 50,000 years ago, about the same time they showed up. So we have some pretty good, strong evidence on these things, but it's to the point where they're not using our DNA for them. They're using their DNA for us. There's a difference. So what they do is they take some human DNA and they take a little tiny bit of alien DNA, depending on what world that this body may be going to, and they construct what they call host bodies or husk bodies. These are bodies that your consciousness can be uploaded into and be sent to anywhere. Because people all the time go, well, these bodies can't just go to any world. These are 1G bodies, maybe 2G bodies. You're not putting this body on a 5G planet. You're dead. And you're not going to put it on a body that's a tenth of a G like the moon, because eventually that's going to kill you as well.
The fifth planet that we spoke about earlier is about 5-6 times the size of Earth, or would have been. It had not been broken up. If we were to go there now, and that planet was still around, and we could walk around without, spacesuits, the gravity would be so strong we would not be able to get off the ground. We'd be stuck to the planet.
And anybody from there who came here would be super.
Be like Superman.
They could be picking up cars one-handed and shit.
Mm-hmm.
So like when we go to Mars, we'll be able to lift up the front of the rover to look under it and work on it. We'll be able to jump up 3 flights. It won't need stairs.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing on the moon. The moon has less gravity than Mars.
The moon is 1/6. I think Mars is 1/3.
Yeah, it's 1/6 and 1/3. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's no
Moon is
1/6.
1/6. I can tell you that. On the moon, that means if you take a 1,000 pound weight, it now weighs 600 pounds on the moon.
So, no, on Mars it's 1/3. Yes, it's just. Oh no, you mean Jupiter? No, Jupiter's way. Jupiter's. I don't know what it is. It's 100 times what we are. 500. I'd have to look it up.
It's almost the size of our sun in diameter, I believe.
It's gravitational pull. So if you were to get out of a ship on Mars, you'd be flattened like a pancake in like 2 seconds. Sorry about that, guys. My thing fell. I mean, no, you'd be. It'd be like if you stepped on a grape and you'd be just flattened. There would be nothing left. There's no ship we have today, no metal, no nothing that we have today that could land on Mars without being squished.
And Venus.
Yeah. It's
Venus has a great pressure on its atmosphere too, so
Venus
it would crush most of our, and it did crush all of our equipment.
Yeah, or
two probes and both failed.
Yeah. Well, Venus has got a triple play. It's got an enormous amount of pressure. It also has an acid type gravity. It's got high pressure, acid type gravity, plus the average temperature is 800 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, it's not hostile. It's not hostile.
Right in front of the sun. So it's a little warm.
So you got Mercury, which is, oh, speaking of this, here's something new for all you ladies. You're going to love this. So the Mercury has 90-mile thick diamonds on it. The whole entire surface is covered in diamond. And I don't know if they meant one diamond or just big chunks of diamond, but they're not talking about these little diamonds y'all wear in your rings, ladies. No. They talk about diamonds like size of your freaking car.
Diamond is one of the few minerals that shape. That's when you dig it out of the ground, it's roughly like this. An eight-sided cube.
It's well, no, Carly. What Lee had asked us about the dreams, but if you're having reoccurring dreams of alien contact, then you've been contacted. Yeah. So what you need to do is get with somebody, a researcher who's a good researcher, not somebody who just. Okay, first off, ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to talk to anybody about alien abduction, make sure they've been in the field no less than 15 years, no less. Okay, just don't even bother, because it takes that long just to get through the bullshit to get to the real stuff. I've been in 40 years. I've been researching 40 years. That's how long I've been a researcher. And I've been through a lot of stuff. I've learned a lot of stuff. I've rewritten a lot of stuff. And this is what's so funny. I've rewritten, I shouldn't say ICAR has rewritten about a third, maybe even half of what's known in ufology. On top of that, we've actually rewritten some of our own stuff because we found out we were wrong. So in the beginning, like we were talking about earlier about the Greys, we always thought the Greys were subservient. We found out later on that was not true. So I was on some big TV. Oh no, I was on NBC in San Francisco, and I went on air and said, no, we were wrong about this. This is really what's going on with them. The reptilians and humans are much more subservient to the Greys, and the Greys have a much stronger ability and are much more powerful than the other races, and their technology is far beyond any race. So, no, with the Greys, their technology seems to be alive. They grow their ships. Yes, they grow. Plus, they can swap bodies like you swap underwear.
Yeah.
And they constantly have bodies on board their ships and other ships that they can beam their consciousness. From what I understand, there is no limit to the distance that they can beam their consciousness inside this galaxy. Not this solar system, but this galaxy.
I've always said, especially the ones who created our race, when they created our race, they needed us to do work in certain areas. So they couldn't, they're working in a beach, on the below mountain level, sea level area. You can't take creatures from the mountain tops to work down there. It wouldn't work. And same in reverse. You can't take a creature from the sea level and take it up to the mountain levels and have them work. So they had to populate their work areas with creatures that had strength in those galaxies and atmospheres, or planets and atmospheres. So just think about all the different places that we could go. Like we were said about the fifth planet, we could not work there. We would be useless. We would need exoskeletons and suits like Iron Man to even stand up on a planet 5-6 times our gravity.
Yeah, no, we definitely have those suits. Jenny, what is a couple things you could do? I mean, I have listened to people talk about beaming us from planet to planet. That's great after the fact, meaning that once you've gone to the planet and established a base there, yeah, then you can probably beam a person from planet to planet because one, you know what's in between, you know what's going to be there, you know you're going to be able to landing spot. Before that, beaming anybody to a planet is dangerous because no telling what they're going to land in. Two, you may not be able to physically take the body, so you might only be able to beam the consciousness, which means, like in what's that, in Altered Karma, you would have to have a body there waiting.
You have to have a receptacle there to drop into. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, there's no evidence against that we can't transfer. We can't do it, but it is possible. And just think about that. If you can clone different types of bodies, you could make a body that looks just like me, but has gills. So you go to a planet that's all water. I drop into my gill suit, and now I can breathe underwater.
Or if they have higher or lower gravity, the bodies can be designed to deal with that, or they can be combat designed.
Yep.
Strictly for combat or
Creatures
memory.
on large planets with
what do they call it? Which is something our government's working on right now, memory muscle. So our government already believes in memory muscle. They teach soldiers certain things repetitively, so the muscle does it automatically without you thinking about it. But this is a little bit different what they're talking about. But still, these are all things that are waiting for us in the future. These are all things that will probably come to pass sooner or later. So getting back to what we were just talking about, because we only got about 8 minutes, in order, if you've been taken, it just doesn't matter when it was. It could have been yesterday. It could have been 30 years ago. It could have been 50 years ago. It could have been when you were a teenager. So most of the time, dreams will manifest in people in their late 30s to early 40s. That's when most people, if they're going to become useful, that's when they do it. I'm not saying that doesn't happen earlier, because it does some, and it does happen later. But if I was to pick a time spot, I would say 36 to 45. That's the area where most of these people go through what we call the awakening. That's when either the alien has decided that you are no longer useful for the project and you will no longer be taken, or that you are useful for the project and you will now become a communicator or a keeper or one of the other things that they use humans for. So that's just the way they work it. Well, they like having humans on board the ships. They have children on board the ships, which the children themselves, nothing's bad being done to them until puberty. They're just allowed, they just come in for regular checkups. They're allowed to play around the ship and mess with technologies. And because it's easier to teach a child, childs are more inquisitive than you or older people are, and they're less panicking. You know, once they realize that the gray's not going to eat them and they're here to show them cool stuff. Kids, you know, I'm not telling you, if I had $1 for every child who told me, oh, I can't wait to see my bug-eyed friend, meaning one of the grays, I was like, really? And they're like, oh, yeah. The fear comes in between puberty and age 28. That's when all three of these races do whatever these experiments they're doing, from the breeding programs to the physical stuff to the mental stuff. That's when it happens. And it is getting less and less because there's less things they have to learn about us, but still it does go on, and it can be pretty harsh. I mean,
but was it the aliens that intentionally invoked the fear factor, or was that the media? Was that the movies?
Well, it's a try kind of thing. One, it is the movies and it is us, but it's also the aliens, because they don't. It's like when you, in the old days, and I'm not talking about now, but in the old days when someone would take their dog to the vet, they just took their dog. It's like when they used to just put your dog down instead of taking him to the vet or something, or when people had dogs that weren't allowed to be played with by the family because they were work dogs or hunting dogs. It's kind of the same thing for them. They kind of look at us like that, like they shouldn't have to hold our hand and pat our little heads while we're going through this. But for humans, this is very evasive. This is this shit that, oh, well, they removed my arm and put it back on, and you got to watch it. Get the out of here with that. Or they put you on this, they float you in this room that you don't even can't even tell where the light is coming from in this room. And they just thinking like it's brighter, dimmer, and then out of the floor you see this thing bubbling that looks like a giant bubble coming up till it gets to a certain height, and then it spreads out like a table, and then they set you down on it, and then the bubble just engulfs your entire body. Everything's covered. So I don't even know how you're breathing. And then all of a sudden they think in this orifice opens up in a wall, and this tube thing comes out, and this thing gets to your face, and it basically implants a tube in every hole there is on your face, and then goes to other places, and it checks you all out, and then it does its thing. And when they're done, they think about it, and this thing disintegrates back into it wasn't, goes back in the wall, but it doesn't go back as a unit. It just goes away. So the gray ships have the ability for the technology to be designed as they need them, and to be put back into the ship when they don't need them anymore.
The bubble though you talk about, I have heard about that years ago, and I've had a weird dream about being able to breathe in liquids. Allegedly, what it is like there was a guy like right after Cousteau and the Trieste experiment, somewhere in either the 50s or 60s. I don't know, probably closer to the 60s. But he had this theory that you make this certain gel liquid that's like highly concentrated with oxygen, and it's like part of a scuba system. When the liquid actually, you have to like breathe the liquid in, and your face and nose, your nose and mouth are covered, and you recycle this liquid through your lungs. And he said that it would be weird when you transition to this, but people that I have heard about talked about that same thing you did, Joe, that it's just something like that. It's like a gel that goes in them, and there's sort of like a panic attack first until they realize they're not drowning.
Yeah, well, it's like the blue plasma we always talk about. It's the same thing. When they immerse a human in the plasma, they rejuvenate them, they completely immerse them. So whatever this is, it allows you to breathe. And I had seen only one of these. I'd go in to see a friend of mine in the Navy. This is 10 years ago. And he was showing me one of the ones they have. So it's some kind of liquid. It's highly oxidized. It allows them to go, I think he said, an extra 6,000 feet in depth by breathing this stuff, by not breathing air, and there's no chance of getting the bends with this stuff. He said the biggest problem isn't that it works, because it works. It's getting the people used to it. He said it freaks out Marines. It doesn't matter. When they put that helmet on you and they fill it up with water, it's like in the movie Abyss. When they fill it up and you start to breathe in, no, ladies and gentlemen, everybody breathes fluid. Oh, yes. All humans breathe fluid until the day you're born. I hate to be the one that tells you this, but you're not breathing air. You're breathing
You're inside
fluid.
a thing called an amniotic sac with a saline solution of your mother's bodily water for 9 months, breathing water.
Yes, that's a fact. It's so we can do it. Our bodies are designed to do it. It's just we don't really need to on Earth because we have plenty of oxygen to breathe. Well, no, the reason these suits were being designed is because they needed to get down deep, and you can't really. I forgot what the limit for a human was, even with a suit. It's not very far, and even in a diving bell, it's not that far. Remember, we've had two people in pretty serious diving bells, or two different groups of people. Remember the guys visiting the Titanic when it imploded just recently? That tour one killed 3 people, 4 people, and just recently they had another one that imploded. I mean, you're talking serious pressure when you get down there. It's what it is. The deeper you go in the ocean, the stronger the pressure gets. Mm-hmm. Until it gets nothing we have currently can sit on the bottom of the ocean without getting crushed. We have one probe that made it to the bottom of the Marinara Trench, and that's how we found out about black smokers and stuff, and there was life all over the bottom of the trench where we thought it was going to be nothing. No, we didn't think it was going to be nothing. So what they learned was in the deepest recessions of the planet, there is life. Now, but remember this, there's also deserts in the ocean, just like there is on the planet. There's whole areas where nothing grows. So it doesn't matter what it is, nothing's going to live there because there's nothing that stays there. They have these tube worms that live at the bottom, like a tube worm that filters out stuff as it goes through. And there's something else they found just recently that was down deep. But things that live too far deep can't come up to the surface. Yeah, Frank, I don't know who told you that. If it lives in the bottom of the ocean, it's not coming to the top of the ocean.
Not alive, anyway.
Yeah, it'll be dead. And we have found some stuff that we wonder about. And recently, we have found giant octopuses that were plenty big enough to destroy a Spanish galleon. So those stories of an octopus attacking galleons are probably true, especially in the areas they said it happened. 2 were near New Zealand, where we know there's giant squids already live. One was in one of the biggest occupied areas of octopus on the entire Atlantic. I think it was Atlantic, or maybe it's Pacific.
It's the Pacific, Chile, I think.
So they easily had them. And now that we're not, fishing like we used to, you'll probably see, well, look at the sharks. People are everywhere now. Sharks disappeared because we hunted them almost to extinction. But now we quit, and they're all back, all living along the Florida coast, California coast, biting people, eating people.
Chewing off legs and stuff.
Shit, yeah. We stopped hunting gators down here, and they're everywhere. They walking down the street. With Florida too. You got to watch your damn chihuahuas and your dogs. They'll eat them. Oh yeah, they're crazy. No, but we got to go in a few minutes. What was that, Pete? So yeah, if you're having nightmares about extraterrestrials, start writing them down. And then going back and reading and reading and reading and reading, and you get enough shit written down, you'll be surprised it'll kind of formulate into something. And if you get enough stuff written down, find someone like me and make a copy and send it to them, because they can probably tell you what's going on. Because, as much as we want things to be extraterrestrials every time, it doesn't mean that's what it is, people. Sometimes you're just crazy. Sometimes you got other issues. So here's one, and then we're going to so when I first got in this field, 1 out of every 5 people I talked to said they had been abducted by aliens, had been molested by someone, male or female. 1 out of every 5. It actually even got a little worse, and it got to be 1 out of every 3 for a while, and now it's about 1 out of every 8 or 9. Because we've kind of learned how to distinguish between them. What do you mean? Well, because sometimes, it was horrible. Whatever this person did to this other person was so horrible that they would rather think they were taken by an alien than what actually happened. And it's not just a molestation. There's other things besides that. Losing a spouse, losing a loved one. There's things that push you to the brink that would rather make you think that aliens had taken you or taken your spouse than what actually happened. The 140,000 cases we got are all of what we call registered abductees, people that have been investigated and have proven under our criteria to be. We have the strictest abduction criteria. Matter of fact, everybody uses our abduction criteria. Everybody does. They all say, "Oh, we invented that." No, I had a guy from MUFON just recently. Oh, no, we invented it. I said, "Really?" I said, "How long you been?" He said, "About 10 years," and it just came out. I said, "Really?" I said, "Hey, I'm gonna give you an episode of Wake Up USA. I want you to go listen to it." He called me. He actually called me on the phone like 4 days later. He said, "They stole this from you." I said, "Every abduction piece of research you have, including your STAR team, comes from us." And I said, "I'll tell you worse than that. If you go listen to all the Wake Up USAs and the early UFO Undercovers, and you go listen, because every ufologist there ever was on there, go listen to what we said, and then listen a year or two later and see whose research they're using and whose stuff they're quoting without even giving us credit for it." I said, it's ridiculous. Because in this field, you're only as good as your last thing. If you want to stay popular and make money, you're only as good as your last thing. See, iCar's not here for that, but we have all kind of stuff we could release. But that's not what we're really here for. We're really here, 1, to protect the contactee, and 2, to find out what the real truth is, not what the bullshit truth is that somebody who's writing a book or trying to make some money is putting out there. Bob Lazar, okay. Do I think he's telling the truth? Partially, yes. So I've got some friends that used to work at Yucca Mountain, the WIC facility in Los Alamos. Matter of fact, I still got friends that work there. So when he first came out, I had them look up Bob Lazar. I don't know why no one else thought of this, because nobody could find his schools or anything else. So I had them look him up. He was listed as with the janitorial department at Los Alamos, who was loaned to Area 51 from time to time. This was actually in the records. She sent me a copy of the records. So by finding that out, I had her look at some other stuff. So there is no doubt that he's seen this craft. He probably was the guy, the maintenance guy, or the cleaning guy who was working that hangar. Was he a scientist? No one can find any data anywhere. There's no records in any of the big companies or any places that he was ever hired or fired, or has
And
any
the
type of
universities he
degrees.
went to, there's no records of his degrees.
No degrees. There's no records of any degrees or anything.
But
And this was too early on for them to be hiding it, though.
If I'm not mistaken, there were some records found by Stanton Friedman of his early college career, not the whole thing, like right out of high school. But then those records disappeared.
Well, one of his women said that he had gone and he was going to school to be a physicist, and he dropped out. She didn't say why he dropped out, if it was money or something else. But he said the reason he took the job at Los Alamos because he always wanted to work for them. He's always been trying to get to Area 51, which he managed to do. So he can't tell you this kind of stuff now, guys, because he's already told you other stories, and he has conflicting stories out there. But I do believe that he did see that saucer. I have no doubt that he saw that saucer. I can't go with everything else he said, because there's other stuff that contradicts what he said. But that saucer, I have no doubt that he's seen it. I have no doubt that he talked to people in the hangars. I have no doubt that he was there on a regular basis. And, one thing you learn being like I own a maintenance company, one of the things you learn is when you see people every day, they begin to trust you and to talk to you. And if he was a guy working between the two labs, which is probably what he was doing, he probably got to know people. He probably got to meet scientists. He probably got to meet security people, and he probably learned a lot of stuff. Well, Frankie, if he had the pedigree that he said he had, he'd still be working. He wouldn't have opened a whorehouse. He would have stayed in the field. Yeah, he would just went and got a job for one of the big companies. Oh, yeah, somebody would have loved a guy that worked for Area 51. That means he would have known something. I guarantee you Bigelow Aerospace would have gave him a job in a heartbeat because Bigelow loves that kind of stuff. Shit, today Elon Musk probably would have gave him a job.
Elon Musk would have given him a job.
So that's why I'm saying it's questionable in that part. Okay, that part is questionable. But did he see the saucer? I do believe he saw the saucer. Anything more than that, you have to take with a grain of salt, just for this. Well, no, I'm not calling him a liar, not necessarily. I'm calling him maybe he fudged it a little bit. Well, let's be honest, people. He couldn't have went in public and said, I'm the janitor at Area 51 and I learned all this. Nobody would have believed him. Or I'm the maintenance guy. No one would have believed him. But saying that he was one of the guys working on it, they would have believed him. Which is a shame because it was probably more likely that he was the maintenance people and he probably was in contact with other people and probably even knew because he talked to multiple people and multiple things, probably had some idea what was going on. Well, Robert Walsh told me one time that they were never able to get into the craft. Nothing they had could open it. Nothing. No diamonds, no lasers, no plasma, nothing they had could open it. Which makes sense. Anything that can travel through deep space and take a micrometeor hit or anything along those lines is not going to be. So I always tell people when they say, oh, the ship hit the ground and broke up. No, guys. Anything that's going to be able to travel light speed is not going to break up on impact. I'm sorry. Not from a normal collision. It's not going to break up on impact. Maybe if it came in at light speed, then it would probably just blown through the planet and blew up.
Or if it had some sort of catastrophic, failure on board and there was an explosion, which breached the hull from within, which is some people have described the craft at Roswell, the one they found in the Arroyo, that the hole in the gash in the side of it looked like it was burst out from within, rather than it, being burst from crash.
It might have been because the way it was told to me is that the humans and the Greys took the craft out. The Greys were driving the craft. They took it out of Roswell. They were flying over Aurora when the damn thing went apeshit. Well, they were close to Aurora when it went. Well, no, Johnny. So there's two crash sites. Most people don't realize this. There's Roswell and there's Aurora. So at Roswell, they found what looked to be some type of maybe shuttlecraft or escape pod, something that was built that when it hit the ground, it disintegrated. The craft they found in Aurora was intact. It was one piece. It wasn't broken in half or anything. That it was one piece. Like he said, there was a hole. The one guy I talked to said it was on the bottom right side of the craft, and it was probably at least the size of a bus. Yeah, it was a big hole, but this was a big craft. This wasn't just a little bitty flying saucer. This was a pretty decent sized craft. Now, the way we found out about it was a Boy Scout, two Boy Scouts and their troop leader walked up on the craft and found what looked to be 4 human bodies that were kind of melty, pinkish colored, just kind of disintegrating. They were side by sides, which means somebody put them there. And the funny part about these guys was as this story got out, and they were interviewed several times, and then mysteriously driving home from the mountains one day, their Jeep overturned and killed all 5 people. Yes. No rain, no bad weather, pretty day, no traffic on the road. Somehow, no flat tires. The Jeep just flipped and killed everybody. You take it for what it is. I don't know. But those were the only witnesses to the Aurora craft. And really, truly, Mac Brazel was the only witness to the Roswell crash. The only thing that helped us in Roswell was the Roswell Journal, whatever the hell they called it, posted a picture of what looked to be aircraft aluminum, fiber optics, and a microchip. This was in, the 50s? This is pretty serious technology even for today. So it does give us an idea of where maybe the computer generation came from. We may have accidentally started the computer generation by accident, by recovering that one chip. Remember, you ask a scientist how a microchip works inside. Ask one. Just ask any of them. They're going to look at you like you're stupid because they don't know. Remember that most of what's inside of a microchip they can't even see.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, even with an electron microscope, they have a hard time seeing this stuff, and they don't understand quite how the energy disperses between chips. What they've tried over the years is by making different channels, which makes things do different things, but they didn't actually know. Even today, they're still playing with it. That's why we have carbon chips now, because we're realizing by creating certain channels with certain type of energy, with certain types of gold, that it can do things that we don't quite understand how it does it. It just does it because we recovered this freaking chip. We didn't design it ourselves. People tell me all the time, well, it's a natural progression. Well, I do agree that chips are silicone, and I do agree that glass was silicone, glass tubes were silicone. But how do you get from a tube this big to a microchip this big? I don't know if that's natural progression, people. I'm not sure if we went from tube to solid state, how natural that progression is. And I've read many, many things. Remember, I got degrees in advanced electronics, and I'm still kind of befuddled on exactly how we got from big old tubes to little tiny microchips.
Yeah, the technology we have is astounding. It's almost. I mean, we have to have been given it. We've spoken about this many times on the show. This thing right here, this cell phone, has more computing power in this machine than all of the Apollo, Mercury, and what was the other group of missions? All the moon missions, all three
Gemini,
of them.
Mercury, and Apollo, and
Gemini
it does too.
Yep.
So until 10 years ago, this phone had more power than the entire Pentagon, Secret Service, KGB, and Russia. I mean, in China, and just this one phone. So, and this ain't even advanced. This is a 250 gig, 8-core phone, a couple of little special features, and a 128 megapixel camera, in a phone. And I guess we shouldn't even call them phones anymore. Phone is just another use of this damn thing. This is a computer with a phone built into it.
A hand computer.
It is. It really is. I mean, this one can tell you your pulse, all kind of lovely stuff. It's very, very advanced technologies. And we went from a glass tube just 50, well, now 70 years ago to this. We went from this to this in 70 years.
We used to have computer
I don't know,
monitors
people. That's pretty damn
big.
good.
Now they're this big.
Think of it this way. When I joined the Navy, I was working at the Navy AV station in New Orleans. It's a 7-story building. I think it was 700,000 square feet, 800,000 square feet. The whole building was a computer. The whole building. It had punch cards and reel-to-reel. They actually had a punch card with a reel-to-reel system hooked up. We hadn't even gotten to regular chips yet. We had that in the military when I was in the Navy station on the ships. We had quad cores in the Navy, which didn't come out until the 90s, and I had them in the early 80s. We had what they call punch and pull chips, and boards before they were even invented. Punch and pull means, guys, that everything's a piece. You go and you push a clip, 2 clips, the whole board comes out. You just push the whole board back in, put the 2 clips in. Everything's already in it, so there's no conversion. There's no problem. You don't have to go in and put any new software in or anything. You just simply changing out boards. You can do that on your own computer if you know what you're doing. Yeah, you can do that with hard drives and chips, but you got to know what you're doing because it has to be compatible with whatever the original setup was, whatever the original software was. But anyway, we got to because I got to go hang out with Michelle DeRoche. They have started their show. Y'all come join us over there. They're going to have, I know Margie Kay's there and a couple other people's there. So they had 3 other ufologists there. Plus I'll be there giving them shit because that's what I like to do. And so be sure to come by and check out the Outer Realm with myself, Michelle DeRoche, and her 3 guests, and see what goes on. For everybody who came and hung out with us tonight, I appreciate y'all coming and hanging out. Again, people, don't go through this by yourself. There's lots of people out there to help you with this. And as we're bringing ICAR back into full blown over the next 6 months, there'll be more people for you to hang out with. What's that, Peter? MUFON? Yeah, that's what I call them, MUFON. Well, 5 out of their last 6 directors all had Black Ops ties. All. Yes. John Schlussler, yes, he did. James Cameron, yes, he did. He was actually a code breaker for him. Cliff Clifford, he was also, he also had Black Ops ties. John Schlussler had Black Ops ties he worked for companies that worked for the government, like Boeing and Lockheed. Yes. These were the heads of MUFON. Still members of MUFON, by the way. Yes. Yeah, I think they were giving a lot of stuff away. And the last time I had talked with Walt Anders, well, not the last time, but when he joined ICAR, he came on Wake Up USA and we were talking. And that's when he officially hung up his hat at MUFON and became an ICAR member because, well, MUFON wasn't doing anything. They weren't investigating abductions at all. That was taboo for them. It still is kind of taboo for them. They don't like it. That's why they got their star team so they can keep it separate. Anyway, I'm sorry for being an ass. We got to go, guys. Go, Joe. Be sure to check out Jay. He'll be with me Friday, and he'll be. Are you with Jeffrey this Friday?
Yep, I'll be on Church of Mavis right before News on the Flip Side.
Yes, yeah, that's Church of Mavis comes on. Y'all check out Church of Mavis, and then we'll be on. We got a lot to talk about this week. We got Camilla to talk about this week.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep seeing all these polls and stuff I got to talk about. Some of this stuff is just cracking me. I can't talk about it here, guys, but it is just cracking me up. I'm just telling you. I'm going to have so much fun Friday night. It's not even going to be funny.
You might even go 4 hours.
do I think she's going to win? Come by Friday night and find out.
You'll find out. Yeah.
Find out, yeah. Well, we picked every president since the station's been up. We haven't been wrong with one yet. Oh, yeah, I made a lot of my friends mad last one because I said Joe Biden was going to win, not Donald Trump. And they're like, no way, Joe, no way. I said, no, unfortunately, Donald didn't prepare himself well enough for this election. And the media was already against him. The media had been planning his downfall for 2 years. Get the hell. I mean, he really would have had to bust it. And he just getting, and now he's going to go in and win with 34 counts against him. We'll see if that's even there come
election.
No, we're gonna talk about all of that. No, we're gonna talk about them maybe doing debates and stuff like that, and things like that. Well, here's one for y'all, so y'all can prepare yourself for Friday night. Go watch Tulsi Gabbard, who used to be a Democrat, debate Kamala Harris because they were both running for president, and see the debate. Now, remember, Tulsi's out of politics. She should have been asked to be Trump's VP, but he didn't ask her. But go see. If you think this woman's going to be able to debate Trump, go watch her debate Tulsi. Oh, man. Of course, there's going to be a lot more prepped here. They're going to prep her for everything they can. Remember, they gave Joe Biden the questions in the last debate, and he still did that bad. Well, no, they didn't give them to Trump. They just gave them to him. Oh, no, they cheated outright.
Then they had the press conference. He had his press conference like a week later where all the questions, it said, unscripted, but all the questions were pre-designed. Yeah. He went in the order in the list from one to the other.
Yeah. He was, they tried to cheat for him. It just didn't help him any. And that's why Trump said he didn't want, if he wants to do a debate, he wants it on Fox because he don't trust that CBS or NBC.
CNN.
Yeah, we'll give him the, was on at CNN last time, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, it was on CNN. Yeah.
So, what's that? No, you got to come Friday night. I got to go. Anyway, y'all come check us out on Friday night. We'll be raising all kind of hell. A lot to talk about. Remember, people, we are now 3 months and about 10 days from the election. There's 7 days left in this month, and there's like 5 days because it's on the 5th. So that gives you 11 days. 3 months and 11 days is what you got till election time.
Between here and now, all hell is going to break loose.
Yes. So it's going to be interesting. And I still have not seen, I've seen J.D. Vance come out a little bit nasty, but I still have not seen Trump say anything nasty. I've seen Kamala, though. They're going to use that against her. She better be careful with that. Anyway, on that note, guys and girls, anything you want to know about ETs, be sure to write in anytime you want at icarcox.net. We always like answering questions. We'll be bringing on some guests, not until probably the end of summer. I got a friend that I wanted to come on with us. Actually, I got 3 female friends I want to come on, get them all together at the same time and let y'all listen to their experiences because they're uniquely different from each other in their personalities, but their experiences are very similar. Well, it's interesting because they have much different backgrounds on the way they were raised, the way they live, the way they are compared to today. Anyway, we got to go, and thanks everyone for tuning in to United Public Radio. Be sure to keep an eye on everything. Actually, on Friday night, we will be on Roku and we will be on Rumble. So be able to check out both of those. And there was something else I want to tell you. But anyway, on that note, good night and stay tuned for The Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche. I'll see y'all over there. Good night, everybody.